Walt Disney famously once said that Disneyland will never be complete. For better and for worse, that is clearly true in 2025. These parks change with time, technology, relevance, age, and many other factors. With that in mind, the Walt Disney World parks have all changed and transformed throughout their existence, and a lot. So as a big fan of theme park history, and especially Disney history, I find it to be extremely interesting looking at how each one of these parks has changed throughout time. Some, of course, more than others, but while thinking about this, I came across an idea. What would have been the most ideal year to have visited each one of these Walt Disney World parks? And what about that specific era, that time, made it so ideal? To fairly judge this, I had to get some research going, so I took a good long look at the park's history for all four. I spent some good time digging around at what time certain rides and attractions opened, closed, etc., etc. But after some time, I finally decided on my personal picks. Just to be clear, these are, of course, based on my opinion, so please keep that in mind. But to fairly judge it, I had two main pieces of criteria. When the theme park found its strongest point of identity, and when the greatest lineup of attractions and rides were open and thriving simultaneously. So you might have your own takes on what that means for you, but this is what I personally prefer. So buckle up, we are going to take a look at all four Walt Disney World parks and decide what year in their existence would have been the most ideal time to visit. Let's go ahead and start with Disney's Animal Kingdom. The newest park to the family. To be honest, this is the only one that's even remotely easy to decide, as there has not been nearly as much change to this park compared to the other three we'll talk about. This one's been around since 1998, so not nearly as much time as the other three. Anyway, I went back and looked at everything they've added and got rid of. Oof, this park opened with how many rides? Dude, I cannot fairly say that this park would be the same without Pandora or Expedition Everest. So if I was to travel back in time, yeah, I would have loved to have ridden Countdown to Extinction, seen Camp Mickey and Minnie, and just kind of test the vibes of the park when it was newer, but those are not nearly strong enough reasons for it to stand up against now what I consider to be some of the best rides that exist at the entirety of Walt Disney World. So for that reason, I have decided that the year 2017 is the correct answer here. Honestly, not a lot has changed throughout the last couple of years at Animal Kingdom, so you could fairly argue, I'd say, anytime 2017 onward. But specifically this year, Pandora was new and exciting and fun and fresh, and the park was open later at night. So there was just a lot of buzz about Animal Kingdom, and the future looked really exciting here that year. So that is why I chose 2017 for Disney's Animal Kingdom. All right, we'll move on to our next youngest park. Why not? Disney's Hollywood Studios, or as some people know it, Disney's MGM Studios, has changed an unbelievable amount in its 36 years of existence as a theme park. This one is up for debate, absolutely. The park has changed so much, struggling to find a true identity. So there are so many valid takes on this one. It was a very difficult decision to make on my end. I think there are a handful of answers here, right? If you prioritize rides, for example, the newer IP-based lands like Toy Story Land, Galaxy's Edge, you might have to pick some time between 2019 to the present day, and you know what, that's okay. Or maybe just around the turn of the century when a lot of that MGM magic was still fresh and around, but now you had Fantasmic and Rock and Roller Coaster on Sunset Boulevard. Or maybe you don't care about the lack of rides when the park was new and you wish you could have seen it at 1989's park opening for that full backlot tour and all the shows the park had. Personally, I have to have the Great Movie ride in this park. Otherwise, it's incomplete. That ride was the park's glue. Sorry, that's my opinion. It's just my take. Anyway, with that in mind, I could not wholeheartedly pick any year later than 2017, which does suck because I love Galaxy's Edge here. I love its place in the park. However, from the footage I've seen and with the kind of person I am, I do think I would have really loved and appreciated this park earlier on in its existence when a lot of the behind-the-scenes filmmaking immersion was still intact. So I do wish there was a time when there were more rides without taking out all of these groundbreaking quintessential attractions. So this is a really hard one. But with all that in mind, trying to decide, my first choice was the year 1994. Why? This saw the arrival of Sunset Boulevard, which is an iconic stretch of the park, arguably the best looking area of the entire park. Tower of Terror had just opened, bringing a big new thrill to the park. Backlot tour was still going strong with most of the stops included. A lot of the key ingredients were here. Muppet Vision, Indiana Jones, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Magic of Disney Animation. The park has really never had one year of absolute perfection, in my opinion. But in 1994, they had finally established themselves, in my opinion, to a bit of a stronger level. But you know what? I'm gonna put some runner-ups because it's my video and I don't care. It is so close. 1999, baby. Rock and Roller Coaster, brand new on the street. Fantasmic is there. Another year I think that is another pretty valid pick is 2008. You'd have Toy Story Mania, Lights, Motors, Action, and still some of those backlot elements intact. So between those three, I'd say that's maybe my top 3 choices for this park. But wow, that's tough, man. This park has had so many different eras. So what do you guys think? I'm really curious about this. What do you guys think about this? Moving on to our next park, Epcot, my personal favorite park at Walt Disney World. There's probably nowhere else I'm more curious about for park history than Epcot because of how many changes it has seen. The 1980s, which I would also just easily consider to be my favorite decade of pop culture, by the way, were very good to this park. It was a special time of immersion, thematic world building, and just great theme park work. So I knew immediately that my answer would have to be at some point early on when everything was new and still running. You see, the heartbreaking thing about Epcot is that a significant amount of opening day rides and attractions are gone today. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't believe that there are any rides or attractions that have been completely untouched since opening day. I mean, there's Spaceship Earth, there's the Land, a lot of the World Showcase, and those obviously all exist to this day, but they have seen changes and little alterations. I think maybe the American Adventure might be an outlier here. Anyway, the point is, Epcot has been taken over by Disney IP. So as much as I love, rides like Cosmic Rewind, Soarin', Frozen Ever After, there was something so undeniably moving about the early attractions here. So, with that in mind, I picked 1989 as my choice. And why not just 1982 or 1983? Well, by 1989, we had seen the addition of the Norway Pavilion, which of course included Maelstrom, which is a huge bucket list ride of mine. So selfishly, that's kind of one of the big reasons I put it here, while also still having all the originals, and the Living Seas had also been added by this time. But honestly, I would not argue with any year from, I think I would say maybe like 1983 all the way to 1994. The park was nearly perfect for almost all of that time, with slight changes, some additions, but a lot of the original stuff still there. I think that a lot of people would agree that pre-Epcot, when it was specifically Epcot Center, that was the time to visit. That was the park's shining age. The park's original attractions were just timeless. And again, I am not putting down Epcot today. It's my favorite park still, the way it exists now. I love it so much, but there was just something different about it before they dropped the center in the name. I just think back in 1989, this park was unlike anything else in the entire world, so that's my rationale for that. And last but not least, Magic Kingdom, the original Florida park that started it all for Walt Disney World. And funny enough, not that much has changed here compared to Epcot or Hollywood Studios. This park has always kept its identity true, and it's always known what it was. Meanwhile, though, there have been several attraction additions and removals, so the different eras of this park's history are more notable for the rides that have been there at those times. For example, if you're nostalgic for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or Mickey's Toontown Fair, or the Mickey Mouse Revue, just to name a few things, those could all be some valid arguments to choose certain eras, right? But my pick, and this is honestly tough, right? I think you could settle on anything, maybe after 1975, as that welcomed in Space Mountain. I think my final call, however, is going to be 1993. Why do I say that? Well, Splash Mountain is welcomed in, which I think was a really great addition. Mr. Toad still rides on, Delta Dream Flight is soaring, and many of the other weird rides of the past are still hanging on. There were so many rides that opened and closed in the 1990s, so it's nearly impossible to pick a perfect year, per se. But I'm going to go with 1993. The old version of Fantasyland that was intact was really interesting to me, so that's a big pull for that call. If there was a time when Splash Mountain and Tron existed at the same time, I think I might have had to do some rethinking. Oh, so honestly, that was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, I don't even know if I would stick with those answers, but that's where I'm at right now. But I think overall, if you gave me the question to say, what's the best 5-year timeline you could have just visited Walt Disney World Resort as a whole, I would say 1989 to 1994 was maybe the closest it's been to perfect. I wasn't terribly bothered by IP just yet. there was enough of it there to get started and all that, of course. It was just pure wonder, pure fun, whimsy, and joy. And yeah, I think that would be my ideal time to go back in time to visit. And I desperately wish that I could, but not that all of this is not to say that Disney today is bad by any means. Obviously, I love it with all my heart. It's just fun to think about the past, and if I could go back to any specific time, it would be around that late 80s, early 90s. So that's what I'm thinking, guys. Thank you so much for coming out, checking out this new concept video with me today. Just something I was thinking about a while and thought that it would be a fun thing to talk about. Also, I realized I was gone for a long time. Just had a crazy couple months, but I want to get back into this, bring some fun summer videos and concepts to you guys. So please let me know if you have any ideas. Thank you so much for watching. I'm excited to get back into this. Have a great rest of your day, guys.